All right, so good evening. Thanks to those of you who are here and those of you who are watching. I appreciate you taking the time. Welcome to our workshop on global conflict and cooperation. We're on week 4. Yay. We're slowly and steadily making progress. For those of you in the 8-week session, you're almost halfway through. For those of you in the 16-week session, you're about a quarter of the way through. So during the fall, we've had workshops on Afghanistan, Haiti, El Salvador, and now today we'll be talking about the country of Guinea, located on the African continent on the western side. And if you're interested, you can watch the recordings from the summer, which give you the kind of conceptual ideas behind the workshop, like things like regional conflict and cooperation, operationalizing those, and then giving some examples of countries, and then larger examples like climate change and bilateralism. So you're welcome to go through those at your leisure. Let's go ahead and jump to week 3, country of Guinea. So here's a Google Earth image of the country of Guinea, which is located right through here. And the neighboring towns are the Gambia, Liberia, Mali, Algeria, and a couple other countries as well that don't show up on the map. But this is a rather remarkable country, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit about it. So our learning objectives for today are the following. First is, by the end of this workshop, you should be able to identify where the country of Guinea is located. Secondly, you should be able to describe the coup d'etat in Guinea that just occurred 4 or 5 days ago. And then lastly, describe the USAID country development cooperation strategy, among other things. So the first thing I like to do is always share a little bit about the country itself. And we rely on the CIA World Factbook. And the CIA World Factbook has been around, I don't know, at least 20 plus years that I'm aware of. And I've always found it useful because it basically gives you all this background information about a country. Now, obviously, it's not able to go into like the culture, the richness of the people, of the detailed history of it, or the current political situation, but it gives you a sense of how the U.S. intelligence community is like looking at it and engaging with it. So here on the website, you'll see different countries of the photo, Guinea, country flag, country map. I'll go ahead and pull up a map of the country so you can see what some of the major cities and towns and ports are, and some of the neighboring countries. So we'll let that load for a moment. So here we see that the capital is Conakry, and to its south is Sierra Leone and Liberia. To the north is Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Senegal, the Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau. And here's some major cities and 2 major rivers, the Niger and the Milo, that go through parts of the eastern side of the country. Now, what I like to do is have this background read to us just to give us a little bit of context of what's going on in the country. And so I'll go ahead and highlight that, and I'll right click and have it read out loud to us. And before I do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen really quick so I can turn on the audio function, because I forgot to do that in the original part. So let me go ahead and set that up. Great. And let's go ahead and have this read.
Guinea's deep Muslim heritage arrived via the neighboring Almoravid Empire in the 11th century. Following Almoravid decline, Guinea existed on the fringe of several African kingdoms, all competing for regional dominance. In the 13th century, the Mali Empire took control of Guinea, encouraging its already growing Muslim faith. After the fall of the West African empires, various smaller kingdoms controlled Guinea. In the 18th century, Fulani Muslims established an Islamic state in central Guinea that represents one of the earliest examples of a written constitution and alternating leadership. While European traders first arrived in the 16th century, it was the French who secured colonial rule in the 19th century. In 1958, Guinea became independent from France, and Sékou Touré established an authoritarian regime. Touré ruled until his death in 1984. After Touré's death, General Lansana Conté staged a coup and seized the government. Conté organized and won presidential elections in 1993, 1998, and 2003. Upon Conté's death in December 2008, Captain Moussa Dadis Camara led a military coup, seized power, and suspended the constitution. In September 2009, presidential guards opened fire on an opposition rally, killing more than 150 people. In early December 2009, Camara was wounded in an assassination attempt and exiled to Burkina Faso. In 2010 and 2013 respectively, the country held its first free and fair presidential and legislative elections. Alpha Condé won the 2010 and 2015 presidential elections. Condé's first cabinet was the first all-civilian government in Guinean history.
And so it should go on to read that in March of 2020, Guinea passed a constitutional referendum that extended presidential terms and reset Conde's term count later that year. Alpha Conde won a controversial third presidential term, and his current term will end in 2016. Now, this information at the last part is pre-coup d'etat, which is a military overthrow of a civilian government, which we'll talk about in a moment. But this gives you at least a little bit of context for the country of Guinea itself. Now, let's talk about the conflict. We'll share an article here about Guinea's president held in military detention, say army coup leaders. So let's go ahead and jump to that article, published in The Guardian. And we'll go ahead and play let's see the video here. So let me click that. You always bring. We'll have to get past this ad here, as always. Nothing is free, especially news. So I'll go ahead and let this finish playing. I'll turn the sound back on. Okay.
La gabegie financière, la pauvreté et la corruption endémique ont émené l'armée républicaine de Guinée à travers le Comité national du rassemblement et du développement, CNRD, à prendre ses responsabilités vis-à-vis du peuple souverain de Guinée.
Nous voulons rassurer la communauté nationale et internationale que l'intégrité physique et morale de l'ancien président n'est pas engagée.
La joie, elle est maximale, mon frère. Et là, regarde, c'est comme ça que ça se passe dans l'étendue du territoire. Les Guinéens sont libres.
And so you got a little bit of the sense of what was going on. I'm going to go ahead and have this read to us as well, just give it a little more context. And it sounds like the sound is not working, so we'll just go ahead and jump through it. So Guinea's president, Alpha Conde, is being held in military detention according to an elite unit of the army. The coup leader and head of the country's special forces, Colonel Amandi Doumbouya, announced in a state broadcast on Sunday that the country's constitution has been suspended, the government dissolved, and the borders closed with a 24-hour curfew passed. All political prisoners would be freed, and a renewable 18-month transition would commence under a new committee for reconciliation and development. Doumbouya, a former French legionnaire, said the events had upended the 11-year regime of the 83-year-old president and sparked political upheaval in the mineral-rich but impoverished West African country. Quote, if the people are crushed by their elites, it's up to the army to give the people their freedom, he said. The president has not been seen since unrest began on Sunday morning, so this past Sunday, but pictures and footage circulating on social media showed soldiers surrounding him as he leaned back on a sofa in bare feet, jeans, and a partially open shirt and vest. The president is with us, Doumbouya said, while arrests of other senior government officials were also reported. Make a note here that Conde, a once beloved opposition activist, came to power in 2010 with popular support, drawing a line under a history of brutal military regime. Yet, despite some economic gains and development, the country remains impoverished and rights abuses have mounted in recent years, with dissenters jailed and abused. So the country of Guinea experienced a coup d'etat, which is a military takeover. This is a significant event in geopolitics. Anytime you see a country that is democratic or has free and fair elections go, basically we call it democratic backsliding, or in this case backsliding to authoritarian or dictatorial military rule, it always attracts the attention of international scholars and the broader international community, because it's concerning that you have apolitical processes, in this case a military junta or military taking over the apparatus of the government, and not obviously going through the normal means. So this is an example of conflict right? When you have different branches of the government, in this case, the military and the civilian government, at odds with each other. Now, in addition to conflict, there's obviously elements of cooperation. And the USAID is the United States Agency for International Development. And what I'd like to do is share their country development cooperation strategy. Again, this is pre-coup, but it gives you a sense of where the United States is on things. Let me go ahead and see if this would play for us. I have a feeling it might not because there seems to probably be a malfunction with the audio, but we're going to try.
USAID's goal under the 2020 to 2025 CDCS is more participatory governance for a healthier, more prosperous Guinea. 2 development objectives will support the goal. Development Objective 1 increased capacity and commitment of the local health system for better health outcomes, and Development Objective 2 democratic and economic governance strengthened. The mission will shift from a focus on supporting central government institutions to engaging with committed government, private sector, and civil society actors at the local level to advance health, governance, and economic opportunities. The mission expects this grassroots approach to bolster democratic governance across development sectors by building norms of citizen participation in decisions that affect their lives with institutions closest to them. The objective of the United States in Guinea is to bolster the development of a stable and democratic Guinea as a security, economic, and political partner in West Africa. Consistent with the National Security Strategy and the State USAID Joint Regional Strategy, the U.S. government seeks to achieve the following 4 goals through the Integrated Country Strategy for Guinea. 1. Advance mutual peace and security interests. 2. Encourage mutually beneficial trade and investment between the U.S. and Guinea. 3. Transform Guinean health systems to accelerate reductions in mortality. And 4. Strengthen democracy, human rights, and good governance. USAID will directly contribute toward the 3rd and 4th goals with the 2020 to 2025 CDCS.
Now, that gives you a general sense of USAID's role in this broader U.S. government policy strategy to promote cooperation between the 2 countries, and obviously, in this case, empowering people at the local level. I'd like to go ahead and open up this cooperation strategy just to give you a sense of the detail that goes into this kind of work, and make a first note here that this is the unclassified version, because apparently there's a classified version somewhere out in the ether doing its thing. And this is from December. It's a 5-year strategy. So just note the table of contents, right? It gives you an executive summary, country context, its strategic approach, the results framework, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, and the required annex, in this case, journey to a self-reliance country roadmap. So you can see here how the United States has, we always hear about our military and our armed forces and the work that they do around the world, but we don't hear as often the humanitarian and the diplomatic efforts that are underway. And the USAID is one of those elements that helps do that. So when the United States is trying to build a cooperative relationship with other countries, in this case, the country of Guinea, the USAID is nearly at the forefront, along with the State Department and maybe other elements of our government to promote those relationships like trade and economic development. So if you go through this report, it goes into great detail about what's going on and what's happening. So I think if you're interested in another country, or you're studying other countries, like in a future international relations course or an economic development course or something like that, or maybe you're in a business major looking to get into doing international business, you can look to these kinds of documents to give you a sense of what's going on, and obviously the United States' relationship with countries around the world. So this would be an example of cooperation. Obviously, this has probably been upended to some degree because of the coup d'etat that's happened. So when you have conflict in a country, it can obviously create instability and uncertainty for the people, for business actors, for other political actors, but can also potentially disrupt existing efforts that are going on, in this case, the country development cooperation strategy. Now, one thing I'd like to point out, when you have these 2 things of cooperation and of conflict, what are the implications when something like when an event happens? So in this case, how the coup in Guinea could raise car prices or foster better deals for the people. So let's go ahead and open up that article and have this read to us. So I'm going to play this part first, and then I'll play another part in a moment. And just to change it up a bit, let's see if I can change the voice. It's not going through, so I'll go ahead and read it. Dakar, Senegal. Gunfire was still crackling around Guinea's presidential palace when the panic began over the future of the country's natural riches. So this was 2 days ago. The West African nation boasts the world's largest reserves of bauxite, a key source of aluminum for foil, soda cans, and cars. The reddish rock became a symbol of hope and despair under President Alpha Conde's, who turned Guinea into a top exporter, which means he was sending this resource out before soldiers ousted him Sunday in an apparent coup d'etat. Some West Africans bemoaned a democratic backslide. Others celebrated the downfall of an unpopular leader who, critics say, enabled foreign mining companies to wreck farmland and drinking water. The aluminum industry simply shuddered. Analysts warned of potential turbulence. Military juntas are notoriously fickle, one British consultancy noted, as the prices of Guinean bauxite shipments to China, its top customer, hit an 18-month high. The Russian firm Rusal, one of the planet's biggest aluminum producers, threatened to evacuate its workers from Guinea, and the cost of aluminum clung to a 10-year peak. Researchers said shoppers around the globe could expect a financial jolt if the flow of bauxite was ruptured. The uncertainty in Guinea could put cost pressure on value chain for anything that contains primary aluminum. Alan Clark, an Australian bauxite analyst, the consumer pays more. And this article goes on to describe the implications of having a country basically have to deal with this kind of crisis. And we're going to listen to this video to give us a little more context.
Some calm being restored?
Good morning, Heidi. Yeah, from all accounts, it's relatively quiet on the streets of Conakry, the capital, right now. As you say, the new leadership, the military leadership there is saying that it will allow mining operations to continue as normal. And certainly what we're hearing from foreign operators in the country is that operations are proceeding fairly normal at the moment. Of course, it's difficult to get good information from these sites which are outside of the capital. But so far, it sounds like things are still running relatively smoothly. What I would say is that it's a fast-moving situation. The former president, Alpha Conde, he's not conceded power to this new leadership as yet. So there's still a way to run in this story. So I think there will be some uncertainty and therefore volatility in the aluminium price, certainly for the time being.
I want to bring in the sort of China part of the equation here. What does it mean for the Simandou project, iron ore project, which is obviously China's and them backing that initiative there as their way to diversify, their ore sources?
Well, David, that's really the several billion-dollar question that a lot of people in the iron ore industry are asking right now. What does this mean for Simandou? Obviously, the great hope of China for this huge iron ore project to take some of to dilute some of its reliance on Australian iron ore. And as you're well aware, China has been looking to diversify its sources of raw materials from Australia amid a diplomatic spat between those two countries that has sort of evolved over the past year. Simandou has been long in the development, and one of the interesting parts of this project is that the government that's just been ousted, one of the main drivers of them awarding the contract to China and the other various groups involved was that they build a very long rail line, 400 miles long, to a port in Guinea rather than maybe some cheaper and more efficient alternatives. So it does beg the question of, if we do get a new government in power that's perhaps more flexible, maybe they will be open to different ways of arranging that. But in the meantime, a lot of uncertainty over whether the project will continue and whether there will be delays to it.
So there you get some sense about the complexity of this conflict and the implications of it. So with that, we'll go ahead and stop recording and jump to our discussion. Thanks for taking to listen in.